Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm the only public sector speaker today, and I think that you need to understand a bit about us as public sector employees if you're going to understand what I hope to say to you to say.
Just a little bit, yeah.
I'm such a short person, I can't do both. How's that? Is that better? Not really. So I have to shout like this all the time. Okay? Cool. Okay, I'll start again. I'm the only public sector speaker here today, and if you are going to understand what I'm going to talk to you about, you have to understand a bit about the public sector. So, for example, all of you, I suspect, are from the private sector, and if you have a problem, you can go to and delve through all the various management and business books that exist in the world today and learn a bit and try and read about your problem and learn from that. None of these apply to the public sector. None of these books apply at all to the public sector. The things you need to know about government and the way public sectors work are as follows, really. It is a very complex organisation, government, and profit to us is an intangible, abstract concept. We are politically driven, not profit-driven, and things like saving jobs, only buying local services, and being the biggest employer in town are very important concepts to us. If you ask a public servant to introduce shared services, they will immediately want to build their own centre rather than use someone else. They always want to do things in-house rather than out-house. In the great majority of civil servants' minds, cost equals income. This is because we have a cost-driven model when we're given budgets, and if our costs go awry, then simply we need more income, not to reduce our costs. So we always equate income to costs. And if our costs go up, we just need more income. We do not understand the concept of time equals money. And most importantly, the most important thing you need to know is the most often used word in government is no. Right, I'm here to tell you about NHS Shared Business Services Limited, which is the first proper public-private partnership between the public and private sectors in government in England. And as I'll be speaking from a public sector standpoint, it's important you know that. And I want to talk about background and context, the overview of the joint venture we have, why I think that outsourcing in this way for government will provide a better future for outsourcing than the current models we have, based around this concept of a contract that's 2 years old by the time you get to look at it. Where we are today and current state of play, and of course I'm more than happy to ask any questions you want. So background and context. I'll get rid of that. I'm from the Department of Health. I'm a civil servant, okay, and the Department of Health performance manages and sets targets for the NHS in England on behalf of ministers in government. We work with ministers and not with the NHS to do that. I cover just England. I do not cover Wales or Scotland. They have their own version of the NHS and they use different people to do that. Okay? The department, I am a civil servant, I work for the government, but the NHS staff are different public servants and have their own employment in terms of conditions and pay. In many areas we have a very good working relationship, but in other areas it's poor, and that's because it's like a head office relationship. And I understand the NHS why they feel that, because everyone hates the phrase, I'm from here from head office and I'm coming to help you do your job better. The department is small, about 2,000 people, but the NHS is big. It's big by Western standards. I'm going to up my nose in a minute, isn't it? We think we have about 1,300,000 employees, but it may be as high as 1,500,000. We'll find out sometime next year when we finish populating a new single database that we're using for payroll. Now, people always tell me it's the second biggest civil employer in the world. I've no doubt somebody's going to tell me here later on today what the first is, and it's in India somewhere. But there are about 300 providing hospitals of various sizes, numerous small hospitals and primary care properties, about 100 commissioning authorities, they're the people who buy health care for the population. And the important factor you need to be aware of is all those are autonomous bodies. Each has their own board and board of directors, and each sign their own contracts on their own behalf. So they have a great deal of independence if they feel that way inclined. And we spend about £80 billion a year on the NHS. This slide has to be, if you read it through from top left across, this tracks how we got where we are in our shared service joint venture. In October 2001, we established in the NHS a requirement to have shared services on the basis that economies of scale would prevail. And in December 2002, we acquired some offices and moved some people in. In April 2003, it went live at about 35 trusts being as foundation clients. About that time, I assumed control of the venture, and I didn't really believe it was the right thing to do in-house, and commissioned a review of the process, and in June, that recommended that we try outsourcing in a joint venture basis. Meanwhile, business went on as normal within the shared service centre whilst I went through a procurement process to find a partner. And the first live trust went live in April 2004. There was a successful year end in June 2004, meaning that we had a 1 year under our belt in terms of operational success. About this time, a famous person in England, Sir Peter Gershon, issued a report saying that we needed to have many more shared service centres and efficiency initiatives as we had, and it became a common thread across all departments. I think the thing you need to look at there is how long it took us to get from idea to concept in terms of delivering the shared service centre. 3 years, and I think government never quite realised how long it takes. In the meantime, the business was growing and growing, and Xansa became our partner in October 2004 and actually went live in April 2005. The joint venture is a fairly standard joint venture, but it's very unusual in government. It's a 50-50 equity JV between DH and Xansa, but profits are shared 60% on behalf of the public sector and 40% on behalf of Xansa on the original F&A products, but 50-50 on any new products the business develops. Xansa has complete operational control of the business, and I only have the concept of a silver bullet, which is that if I keep getting phone calls from the chief executive of the NHS saying it's all rubbish, I'm entitled to go and ask the business to appoint a new chief executive. So that's not happened yet. The business is in the private sector, not in the public sector, and that's another important point, is that if it was in the public sector, every penny spent by Xansa would be scored as a public expenditure. As is business in the private sector, all the investment made by Xansa is scored as private sector investment, and all the income earnings the business makes is private sector, not public sector. There are 3 board members, an independent chair and an independent director, and we allocate 2 places of ours to NHS people. Our share of profits is allocated back to the client trusts on a pro rata basis, so we don't take money out of the company ourselves at all. We have a bank loan in place to cover migration costs, which the trust can borrow against to cover the cost of migration. And we have an Oracle-wide licence across the entire NHS, which is owned by SBS rather than the Department of Health. And there's a very transparent working relationship at board level, but DH, as the head office, you might say, has no access to client information. If there was that access, I think clients would stop using the business because they keep getting phone calls from head office saying, why are you doing this, and such like.